Welcome to IEU News 2020 Roundup. I'm your host, Yeonji Kim. In this special edition of IEU News, I will give you a quick rundown of the top IEU news of the year. The board of the Green Climate Fund, GCF, at its virtual 27th meeting, which was the last board meeting of the year, approved the IEU's ambitious work plan and budget for 2021. This milestone was achieved thanks to the hard work done by the Budget Committee of the board, the entire GCF board, and the IEU leadership. To see what is in store for the IEU for 2021, we now turn to Andreas Royman, Principal Evaluation Officer at the IEU.
Hello and thank you, Yeonji. The IEU has in fact carefully crafted and drafted this work plan and budget for 2021 since June 2020. The final and the latest draft of this work plan and budget has then been submitted to the Budget Committee and its Budget Committee members and board members. And after several revisions on the guidance of the Budget Committee members, the final 2021 work plan and budget was then submitted to B27. It fills me with happiness to tell you today that at B27, the board has approved the 2021 work plan and budget of the Independent Evaluation Unit. So the work plan for 2021 builds on the four pillars of the IEU. One, the evaluations. Second, the capacity building and advisory services. Third, the communications and uptake. And lastly as well, the strengthening of the IEU itself.
Yes.
So on the evaluations, as the board requested through the approved work plan of 2021, the IEU will present an evaluation report for each of the three board meetings in 2021. It will start with a rapid assessment of the request for proposals of the GCF. Secondly, it will also bring forward an evaluation report on the private sector approach and strategy. And thirdly, the IEU will also execute an evaluation of the relevance and effectiveness of its investments in the least developed countries, the LDCs. In addition to this, the IEU will also continue to work on its LORTA window, the learning-oriented real-time impact assessment window. And lastly, it also plans to launch the multi-year second performance review of the GCF, which is subject to further budget approval. I hope that has given you a great insight in our work and work plan for 2021, and thank you very much.
In 2020, the IEU newly launched and submitted to the board 3 evaluations. An independent assessment of the GCF's simplified approval process pilot scheme called the SAP. Another one looking at the GCF's accreditation function, which is an integral part of the GCF's business model. And one on the relevance and effectiveness of the GCF's investment in the small island developing states called the SIDS. What is the significance of these evaluations? For more, we turn to Dr. R.G. Rastogi, Evaluation Specialist at the IEU.
2020 was an eventful year. There were lots of internal transitions in the IEU, and the pandemic broke out just as we were starting some very important evaluations. But through these through the pandemic, through the internal transitions, we continued to deliver to the board evaluations that compromised neither the timing nor the quality. And we continue to ask whether the GCF is doing the right things and whether it's doing things right. We found several interesting things. For instance, in the SAP evaluation, we found that the process was not fast or simple enough. In the accreditation synthesis, we found that the GCF needed a strategy on accreditation. In the SIDS evaluation, we found that that there were regional differences among the SIDS to which the GCF could cater. And we're on track to deliver the adaptation evaluation also. But overall, it's important to remember that the IEU is capable of delivering to the board its mandate, which is to provide evidence to inform the decision making of the board. And overall, the GCF remains a learning institution where there is room for evaluations and where there is room for trusted evidence-informed policies and high impact.
Switching gears, the IEU's learning-oriented real-time impact assessment program, called LORTA in short, successfully delivered a 9-week-long virtual workshop, which was attended by up to 80 participants from around the world, including accredited entities of selected GCF projects. The LORTA team quickly adapted to the new reality of COVID-19 and designed and delivered a virtual workshop, which included 8 online course modules, 8 live webinars, and breakout group discussions in between. What's amazing about this accomplishment is that the LORTA team produced this online course completely in-house. For more on this, we now turn to Victoria Han, Research Assistant Consultant at the IEU.
Thank you very much, Yeonji. So it's been a very challenging and at the same time fulfilling year for LORTA. LORTA Virtual Workshop has been one of the longest and most extensive capacity building activities for the IEU at this scale with 16 GCF projects and other stakeholders. And despite the duration of the virtual workshop series, the engagement was very active with a lot of meaningful contributions from the project implementing lens. And the online workshop also received an overwhelmingly positive feedback based on the satisfaction survey results and follow-up emails from the participants. And it's been great learning for the whole IEU, and we hope to be delivering more capacity building in different modes based on this experience.
Thank you, Victoria, for that report.
Thank you, and Happy New Year.
The IEU prides in its proactive approach to and investment in timely and effective communication and outreach. The IEU's communications workstream achieved many milestones this year, including the launch of a new and improved website and a new podcast series called Evaluator. The IEU's list of professional videos capturing the key takeaways of its evaluations also expanded significantly. For more on this, here is Eben Yacht, Communications and Uptake Intern at the IEU.
This year, we at IEU Communications have really upped our multimedia capacity. We started producing videos that dive into each evaluation in a way that's approachable. The videos we made this year have been viewed thousands of times. We attracted 3 times as many views on YouTube as in previous years. And 2020 was also special because we launched our podcast, The Evaluator, which features experts from across the globe and from right here within the IEU, sharing their insights on topics that matter for evaluation and for climate action communities.
The IEU, dedicated to continuous learning, conducted evidence reviews on relevant topics, such as the role of credit in climate change adaptation interventions and the mitigation approaches by the private sector. One notable accomplishment this year was the launch of an evidence gap map, or EGM, which is an interactive online tool that shows where there is sufficient global evidence and where there is not. For more on this, we now turn to Dr. Martin Prouse, Evaluation Specialist at the IEU.
Yeah, thank you, Yeonji. And the Independent Evaluation Unit really believes it's important for the GCF to learn from global evidence on what works, what doesn't work, for whom interventions work, why they work, and how much they work. And this can really help the GCF leap ahead. And this year, in 2020, we've been working on 4 studies. The first of these is on transformational change. So this study combines evidence from 2 different sectors into one learning exercise. So we focus on the energy sector and on behavioural change in public health, as these sectors show how interventions can drive real change at scale, with depth, and through time. And we've published an approach paper and a protocol for this review. The second study has been on private sector investments in mitigation, and the private sector is critical in closing the mitigation funding gap. So this study is the first to assess causal evidence, that is experimental or quasi-experimental evidence, on private mitigation investments, and we've published an approach paper for this review. Third, we've completed an evidence review on results-based payments. So this is when a funder agrees to make payments based on pre-agreed verified results. And we've found in this review that there's considerable potential to use results-based payment modalities, such as vouchers, within the GCF portfolio. And we've published an approach paper for this review, and the final report will be viewed very soon. Fourth and finally, and as you mentioned, Yeonji, we've also published an online interactive evidence gap map on adaptation, along with the full report for this studies. So all of these products can be found on the evidence review webpage, with the aim of these studies informing GCF practice based on the best global evidence available. Back to you.
The IEU is one of the few independent evaluation offices around the world that has its own dedicated operational data lab, consisted of data specialists and researchers who can collect, slice, analyze data from various sources to enable and support IEU's evaluations. This year, IEU's data lab got an additional boost with the arrival of new staff and interns and the launch of new data visualization tools on the website. For a quick recap of Data Lab's major accomplishments, we now turn to Galina Uberova, IEU's Data and Geographic Information Systems Analyst.
Data Lab ensured that IEU's evaluations have solid foundations of internal and external data, and that recommendations are data-driven. In terms of our data toolkit, among others, we have advanced use of geospatial tools, as well as we are currently exploring use of machine learning applications for IEU's evaluations. To build stronger IEU, our team was working on development of quality assurance, internal standards, and data-related guidelines. With the update of IEU's website, Data Lab got an opportunity to share some of its work in focused and interactive way. Feel free to take a look at it.
The year 2020 also saw the launch of a behavior and design lab called the BAD Lab in short, which is a new work stream within the IEU. The BAD Lab applies behavioral insights to IEU's evaluations work and looks at how applying behavioral insights could improve GCF projects and procedures. Here is Dr. Martin Prowse again.
Yeah, thank you, Yeonji. Yeah, you're right. The Behaviour and Design Lab was established about a year ago, and it focuses on improving decision making to increase resilience and reduced emissions. So many GCF investments require beneficiaries to adopt new techniques or change their current practices. But this isn't always straightforward. There's often a gap between people's intention to act and the action that they put into practice. So this is the last mile challenge. And behavioural science helps us understand how adoption and use of new interventions can be improved and can be sustained. So this year we've supported accredited entities to consider behavioural insights when planning their evaluation activities. We've completed an IEU learning paper. This is entitled Going the Last Mile, Behavioural Science and Investments in Mitigation and Adaptation. And we've collaborated with the Busara Centre for Behavioural Economics through an 8-week training course. Next year, we'll be designing a toolbox for accredited entities, and we'll also be completing an evidence review on behavioural interventions in developing countries. Back to you, Yeonji.
This was probably one of the most shocking news of the year for many IEU members and stakeholders as well. The inaugural head of the IEU, Dr. Jasna Puri, fondly known as Joe, who built the IEU up from an empty office to a team of 28 members today, left the IEU late this year for a new career challenge. Dr. Puri was with the IEU for 3.5 years, and she was dedicated to high-quality, data-driven evaluations, capacity building, and rigorous learning. On a related news, the IEU welcomed 3 new staff this year. For more on this, we turn to Asha Warsama, Executive Assistant at the IEU.
Thank you, Yeonji. You're right. Joe leaving the IEU came as a shock to many. Joe's vision and leadership were instrumental in the IEU's success so far, her work received many acknowledgments throughout her time as the head of the IEU. Joe recently joined IFAD as the new Director of the Environment, Climate, Gender, and Social Inclusion Division, and we wish her all the best in her new position. But despite many challenges, 2020 was the IEU's most productive year. The IEU Dream Team worked very hard to deliver our ambitious work plan, and we were lucky to welcome incredible new staff members and interns this year who were instrumental in the IEU's success. Thank you, Yeonji, and back to you.
On a lighter note, members of the IEU sent the IEU newsroom their season's greetings to their fellow colleagues, stakeholders, and partner organizations. Well, let's take a look.
Happy New Year!
That brings us to the end of this special edition of IEU News. From all of us at the IEU, we thank you very much for your support and collaboration with us throughout the year 2020, which was definitely a challenging and difficult year in many aspects. We look forward to another great and healthy year together with you in 2021. Thank you for watching.